Okay. I want to talk to you about something that is deeply on my mind. Hedgehogs and other things. Mostly that I've been a web developer for a long, long time. And I've survived the first .com boom, and I survived the Java applet revolution, and I survived the Flash revolution, although it's still around. So it's amazing when you're in a JavaScript conference and everybody's like, oh, Flash is totally dead, nobody uses that. Go into video streaming and talk to people there. Go into adult entertainment, not that that exists on the internet, but a lot of people are using that still there as well. So it's not that easy to say like one technology is gone and the other one will replace it. I was here a few weeks ago already, and I was at Google I/O. And I wrote this not scathing, but disappointed article about it. Because I've been at Google I/O for several years. I spoke at the first Google I/O on a panel as well. And I always look forward to Google I/O, because I work for Mozilla, the open web company that does a browser. And Google always announced the most amazing stuff for the web at Google I/O. That Chrome all of a sudden did this and did that, and we're like, I was already preparing my speaking notes for talking to the press how we match what Google is doing right now, because they always like browser makers fight each other, and actually we're friends. It's really not that much of a competition. We all want to get the best browser out there to make the web available to you. And I didn't have to prepare anything this time, because all the keynotes were about Android L and like, oh look, there's like this paper stuff, and now, and on the web we do it with Polymer. It's fine. And I got a bit scathing about the Android car thing when I said like, oh, it's a great new platform where you can reach dozens of users in and surrounding the Silicon Valley. Because saying like $50,000 cars, like, look, and now you have apps on it, like, well done, whoa. Look, I can have like a map on my car, like I have on my phone on my car already. That's amazing. But I was just very disappointed the web wasn't mentioned at all, and so was the Chrome team. I mean, they were very confused about this as well, because strangely enough, people in Google don't know what's coming in the keynote. So it's why I like working for Mozilla as well, because there's no surprises except for ones coming from the outside. So I was just wondering, why is that? What's going on? Why does Google all of a sudden push everything into Android and don't give me the competition that I was expecting anymore? Because in essence, the web should be this well-oiled machine. I've been 17 years a web developer, and we've done the same things over and over again, and we should have this, like, it should be simple. It should be totally simple to set up your first website. I mean, companies like Wix.com and things like that make money by having little page generators. It's like GeoCities 3.0 or something like that. And it should be that easy. But you see, even at a conference like this, they managed not to get the picture of people up on a website right now. And that used to be easy, you know, like I go into my FTP, I upload the thing and I'm done. Or I go into Flickr and I have an API talking to Flickr, getting the photo into my website. Somehow, somewhere, something went wrong and we did something different. And what really annoys me mostly is I was part of the team that built the first pop-up blocker and got it into the browser and promoted it, because pop-ups were awful and they're terrible. Not the stores with hipster clothing, but the things that were in your face and say like download these kind of things. And we've done these 2.0 now. You go to a website like the wonton soup recipe here, and there it asks you, do you want to have the same content that you already loaded over your data connection onto your phone right now for $1.99 after downloading 20 meg of application? Like, we don't even pop-ups in people's faces anymore because everybody has a blocker. We just ask them to download our app right now, because for publishers this is of course great because you have full control over the app. I tweeted yesterday, I spoke at 42 conferences last year, and I found 15 different apps of different conferences on my phone. I don't need any of these. These conferences are over. Nobody does anything with the app of the conferences afterwards. It's just a schedule. So why is that not a nicely marked up HTML table with an app cache to actually work offline? Too simple? Not nice enough? Not enough interaction? I don't know. Why do people give up on the web and start thinking in apps instead? Why do companies want to have an app and not just say like, okay, the web is there. I can reach people worldwide without 24/7, without them having to buy a very expensive phone. I don't have to put my software into somebody's marketplace and be at their beck and call to allow me or not allow me to actually use it there. Publication on the web is unhindered. You just put the stuff there and you're there. But people are not excited about it. Companies are not. And I think the biggest thing is it's all about business. It's about numbers and it's about business and wonderful things. Like, you control the interface completely. I mean, you all probably work with designers and, or companies that wanted to have their own drop-down arrow color because it's their company color. And they want to keep controlling the web. Like, oh, this is our font and this is the font sizes that we have. And I'm like, okay, what about somebody with low vision? We don't have clients like that, or we don't have customers like that. Yeah, you don't, because you piss them off. That's why you don't have customers like that. That's why you miss out on that opportunity. So with apps, I've got full control. I can manage the hell out of it. I know what my users are doing. And end users have a better, they like apps more. They like, I put effort in to download that thing, and it feels like a more emotional thing to use an app than to use a website. A website is just one of those 50 that I have open, and it just doesn't feel the same thing. But companies are making the same mistake, that they're really thinking people are so excited about their app that they are themselves. And we're not. We just want to have something. You see this with like Foursquare going to Swarm, and out of a sudden, oh, color's different. Yeah, fuck it. I still do my check-ins. I don't care what the thing looks like. You see with, I mean, if I were to pay a big company, for example, I would spend a lot of money buying a chat app, and then I realized that 3 weeks later, all the teenagers just use the next chat app that comes around. There's no loyalty as much as we think there is. And apps are all about making money and control. And it scares people that the web cannot be controlled. This is a 1950s model. In the 1950s, people realized we cannot make good products because we don't make any money with them. A product that doesn't break, you sell it once. Make sure your product breaks after a year so you can sell the next one. In the 60s, we moved that even further and said, let's make it look outdated. Let's come up with fashion ideas like make shoes higher, lower, every 5 years, so you can sell new shoes. And with apps, we got the same thing. We've got a V1 and a V2 on it. You cannot sell a new version of a website, but you can sell a new version of an application and promise new features only for the V2 version. And the old one, we might maintain it, but probably you don't even have a choice. You have to upgrade to the other one. So what apps do is make software into a consumable product. And yesterday, actually, my video just released. I spoke at TEDx Thessaloniki about this. So if you got 16-minute time, it was good fun to do. And I'm pitching a fake app that exists called What's Out, which is a local check-in for public toilets, so you can actually be in with their friends. And it was kind of silly, but I showed that a lot of apps are there to make you addicted to them and stay inside them, and that's the business model. You have to be competitive with other apps or you're going to lose out. On the web, you can link to other services and take content from them and be successful that way. And apps are not just there yet. That's why things like app links exist from Facebook, reinventing the link into applications. But why are people not getting excited? I mean, we've got lots of people here, you've got lots of friends. You get paid by the internet. You get paid by doing things for the internet, I suppose. Nobody here writes JavaScript for Illustrator, although you can. It's not fun, but you can. I think the biggest problem we have is that we're inside this massive echo chamber. We all have these really cool MacBook Pros and well, I have fast connections in Europe, you have connections in America. 100 megabit up and down, came for free with a flat. But we like to talk to each other about our things. And the last 2 years I've seen not many things being done for end users anymore, but we get so excited building little tools for each other, building solutions for each other, building add-ons to other solutions for other solutions to each other, and tell each other that's an amazing thing. The websites that list apart and these kind of things that we used to follow that solved UX patterns, that showed how to deal with clients, that showed how to build things in environments that you don't expect, they're going away. They're not as important anymore. And instead we have got like Hacker News and Echo.js, where we're like 6,000 little solutions per day that we should be using. We also don't share the pain. Every single one of you, I would assume, has AdBlock Plus installed or something like that, because, oh, it's so annoying on the web. Well, the annoying web is what our clients are using. So we should share that pain a bit. We should realize what's going on. I've been debugging my blog a few times because I thought my ads weren't showing up until I realized I got the blocker installed. But it's over. I mean, like, I used to make about $2,000 with my blog in 2005, 2006, because I had like 450,000 readers or something like that. Nowadays, $30, $40. It's not a business model anymore to put ads on a website if you write about web development. because we all basically block away the bad things of the web from ourselves so our clients can suffer that. That's not right. We should know what people have to go through and make it better instead of just blocking it away from ourselves. Of course, here you live in the Silicon Valley, and I loved this quote the other day where it's like, Silicon Valley is so disruptive that they've taken a job that can be done from anywhere with the internet and produced a land crunch in one city. And it's true. I mean, I don't mention any names. Yeah, I used to work for a large company, and they then said, like, everybody has to come to the office and work there. At Mozilla, we work from wherever. Everybody can come to an office if they're in a city with an office, but you can work from home, you can have your children, you can have your real life, you can have a social life. It's internet companies that do things on the internet. Why should we sit next to each other in big boxes that cost a lot of money and actually give you the things? I got my laptop 2 weeks before I started, and there's nothing on it, because everything is web-based that we do in Mozilla. And that's great, because this is how to use that technology. If we don't understand how the internet is connected and empowers end users, why should we be the people to build products for them and know what they do? So don't get too frustrated and too excited if you see Silicon Valley news and think you're falling behind because the tech press here says, like, every developer should know this and be 19 years old, and when you're 22 you might as well get shot. I was at Google I/O and I was so annoyed at my camera that my phone was empty. I was at the Twitter after party and I had this 20-year-old mansplaining to me like how to get a job in the Silicon Valley and how to have a career in IT. I mean, I'm okay, I might not know me, but the guy who was standing next to me was the VP of Marvel. In Marvel Interactive. And the other guy that I came from England with is one of the founders of Skype. So he was telling us, the old guys at the event, how to get a career around here and what to do with our jobs. It was just amazing. So don't get too frustrated when people tell you how awesome they are and what kind of cool things they do in their company. Most of it is just like, yeah, whatever. Like, I see you in a job interview and see how you fare then. And we assume that everybody has these computers. We assume that everybody has a Mac. How many of our tools right now are Mac only? This frustrates me to no end. Because I just been to Guadalajara, and it took me a few months to pronounce that, in Mexico, and everybody had like a Windows machine with Linux on it. Like, you're like, okay, so here's the cool tool. Oh shit, I can't show you that one. Oh, this is the, oh no, that doesn't work either. Like, it's just amazing how we take the high-end technology and put more low-end stuff into it. It's like, oh yeah, here's OS X. They spent like years and years making it the best operating system, beautiful and everything, and go to the command line to do everything. Use a Linux computer, then you can do the same thing, right? But it's fascinating when you look at statistics. This is the European whatever, this wonderful URL down there that shows you that politicians really know how to do URLs on the internet. But it shows you that 19% of the population aged 16 to 74 has never used a computer, let alone like go to the internet and do these kind of things. They all will probably get phones now as the first thing. So our job is to bring the web to those people as well. They don't need the web. They can have the iOS store, they can have the Play Store, they can have apps and everything, but I think they deserve the web. They deserve to have the same thing that made me what I am now, wanting to write things and publish things in the world, make pictures, share things with my friends, collaboratively work with people in America, in India, and everywhere. This is not possible in closed environments, unless you stay in one product inside a closed environment, and then all the work you put into there cannot be put into another product again. Why do we keep stepping back in this? And web development used to be this wonderful low barrier to start. HTML, CSS, JavaScript. All documentation is online. You've seen today another startup, another introducing like video tutorials. You can teach yourself everything that you need to know about basic web development right now on the web. And that's amazing, and that's just wonderful. And in the past, when I started, there was not even a book, so I wrote the first few books, and I'm unhappy the way they are now, but I can't change them anymore. But we forgot about this. We forgot how cool it is to just write an HTML page and put it there. Go to JS Fiddle, write a little thing, press that collaboration button, and you can have an audio and video chat with somebody, talking them through the code that you're coding together with them. Or with WebRTC. How cool is that? Like, you don't need Flash, you don't need anything anymore. We can teach each other all these things. But instead, when we start talking about development, because we're in the echo chamber, it's all about spaceship, spaceship, spaceship. Like when I see articles like, oh, people that don't know the command line shouldn't write CSS, I just want to slap that person. Like, okay, I started as a Perl developer. Let's go against each other on the command line, and then we see how much you know the command line. And like, oh yeah, you just chmod that folder 777, because then you can generate files in there. Yeah, and so can the rest of China and Russia. Great. So there's this myth of this great thing called the full stack developer, and that always cracks me up. Like, we're not web developers anymore. We're not interaction architects anymore. We're not HTML monkeys anymore, or whatever job title we gave us over the year. It's always the same thing. And Node.js gave us the impression that we're all server admins and CSS experts at the same time. We know everything from beginning to end and everything in between. And that's just arrogance. And it's also unfair to others, because you want to get on holiday for a change. You want to get sick from time to time and share with other people. We should still be allowed to concentrate on one thing and one thing well, because it's not easy. I love this little quote when somebody said, as a front-end developer, I want to die so I can end the pain. Because, yeah, you cannot tell me that you are, with like 60 minutes on Stack Overflow, you actually know how to set up a node server, harden it against the DDoS attack, and know why things don't render in WebKit compared to Firefox. This is something that you cannot take in. Our brains are big enough, but there's other things in there like kittens and football matches and stuff. So we cannot just concentrate on one thing only. So what do we do to get people started? And it's always the thing. It's so fascinating to see people starting to work with computers and start working with the web and get really excited about it. And Google released something new the other day called the Web Fundamentals. And it's good because a lot of documentation, how to get started, is a bit old school. It doesn't talk about mobiles at all, doesn't talk about responsive design, doesn't talk about like embracing that not everything is a computer with a keyboard. So the Web Fundamentals do a really good job getting people started with thinking about, in a mobile environment and a desktop environment, about using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and 15 other things that are extra, but not really necessary, but okay to use. Now, I found a few bugs in it, and I was like, oh, this is cool, so let's contribute. I mean, I'm from MDN, we have an edit button, great, contribution makes fun. So I looked at the GitHub account, and it said, okay, to contribute, install Xcode command line tools, install RVM, whatever that is, set RVM default to 2000, meaning like go back and hack the thing that you don't know what it is. Install Pigments, run RubyGems dependencies, install Node.js, and install the Grunt CLI. That's how you start contributing to this when you found a broken link. I was just standing there like, what? This is like, the amount of effort we put into creating static pages is fascinating me nowadays. They're static. How hard is that? Like, the dynamic pages are the ones that are the problematic ones, and then you put a cache in front of it, it gets better as well. Or even better was this the other day. KOUTO Swiss is like bourbon, but for STYLUS. Okay? Watermelons are like oranges, but for monkeys. You know, if I don't know what one thing is, then putting more and more on that, it's just not helping. So I was sitting there, what are you doing? Why are you putting so many abstractions on abstractions on abstractions to solve a problem this big? All of these things are power tools. Like, we should explain people how to hold a screwdriver, not to get a power drill and do that, because the battery runs out on that one, they don't know what to do with that because they're too heavy to turn. But we make it far too complex. We have to ask ourselves, is this all innovation or just fluff? Are we just getting too excited about putting a logo on a JavaScript file on GitHub and call it a product? Because every 2 weeks we won't be the guy on Hacker News that does the really cool thing. How many of those have been used in production? Not many, because you go to people like enterprise level people. I've got this beta thing that is in the pre-alpha by some guy who might do something else next week. Shall we put that into the 50 million users that we have? Yeah, you're fired. Like, make these things work better, make these things real, and then we have something going. Because to me, all the polyfills, abstractions, and libraries are a liability as well. The more you rely on them, the more you have to make sure these things stay secure. The more you have to introduce people to them and explain to them. And saying that everybody who starts with web development knows what SAS is just arrogant. It's just, as long as this thing is not in the browser, and it can't be in the browser because of pre-rendering and everything, so let's not start that. As long as it's not in the browser, you cannot rely on it because it's an extra step, it's an extra effort that people have to learn, and it should be very much worthwhile their time to learn that extra thing. There's enough things to look into to learn. One of my favorite bands had this like, if you came to conquer, you'll be king for a day, but you will deteriorate and quickly fade away. And this is what I see in all these things. Oh wow, this week I'm on Hacker News, I'm the man. I'm like, everybody will use my library. Oh, nobody did because there's 3 other libraries 2 minutes later. So don't get too excited about inventing things for ourselves. Let's concentrate on end users for a change. Maybe build something that is fun. Maybe build a ticket vending website where I don't want to kill myself after I used it for 3 minutes. Maybe an airline website that has like real data where the planes might be. This is really cool. Kayak does a really good job with that, where you basically have a slider that has how much money do you have and where could you go. This is a really cool use case. That's the kind of stuff that I want to see. I think we got stuck in a problem called what if. We always build these libraries and abstractions because we think we cannot change things. Well, what if the user has an Internet Explorer 9? Okay, why don't you give him something that works and test for it and make it there? No, that's not working. So here's the polyfill that works with Internet Explorer 9. Not that we ever tested it on Internet Explorer 9, we just put the JavaScript in there that it should understand because it's too much effort to test in that thing as well. But what if the users all were fast on a connection? Okay, send them modems, put wire in the ground, help them out. Otherwise you will not have end users that have it there. So let's thinking about a beautiful world that is out there or might be out there or we want to have and turn it into into what we can do, which is the if what. You can use any technology on the web if you put this around it. Just test for the thing before you apply it and you're safe. The end users that don't have a new browser, that don't have the support of that, will not be the wiser. It's like don't give people on IE6 beautiful interfaces, it just confuses them. They're not used to these things. They're used to the things that they have to use. And don't be so arrogant to say like, oh, they have to upgrade. No, they're not allowed. They work in government. They work in hospitals. They're not allowed to do things. Having a fast, basic HTML page with a bit of CSS rendering for them would make them much, much happier than having a parallax scrolling website that doesn't show anything but loads like 50 meg on like 2.5 minutes. So let's do that more. Let's just test for the things and then implement them. It's called progressive enhancement. It's been around for a long, long time. But people still go for the graceful degradation, which is double the work. Just do something working, put the if what around it, and make it better. So first good example for that is offline first, which to me is the biggest problem that we have to solve. Every single video out there, like when Microsoft does like, oh, this is the future, or Apple, this is the future, is all these like very good looking, strangely washed people that have super connectivity everywhere where they are. They drive through tunnels and they got like 50 megabytes coming on down to their phone. This will never happen. We will not have flying cars. We will not have holodecks because people would have sex in them and not eat anymore and die. We will have a future that is as broken as the reality is now. We have holes in connectivity. We will not have power. Battery life will be short. It's getting better, but it will always be an issue. So let's find ways to make this work. Offline first is the new progressive enhancement to me. Think about the offline use case first and then the others. Which of course is an issue because, as we all know, application cache is broken, right? Big article a few years ago, application cache is a naughty word. And yeah, that's why people have problems using it. Who here used app cache in a real production environment? Good. If all had put your hand up, I would have called you bloody liars. Because one of the really interesting things at Google I/O was when we sat together with friends from Chrome and friends from Microsoft, and we talked about the good thing that's coming, service workers. And we said, okay, so what is the app cache numbers? Every browser out there, every statistic, 0.02% or less. People didn't use app cache at all. And we all complain how broken it is and wrote like 50,000 articles are like, oh, we cannot use it. Nobody tried it, it seems. Like, it's just so depressing if you think about it. I've got a few things out there like books that are online now because they use app cache. It's a terrible solution. It was rushed through. It was like, it's like HT access on steroids, but it doesn't make any sense. But we have it in the browser and we didn't use it. And that's just really, that was eye-opening to me. We put all these efforts in to put polyfills in and make things work, and we pretend that people use these cool technologies already, but nobody does. In AppCache's case, that's just depressing, you know? Why as a browser developer did I put so much effort on making these things work if we don't implement it and instead we write articles complaining that they're broken? Use this stuff, file bugs, find the issues and fix them for us and with us. Which brings me to ServiceWorker. ServiceWorker is incredible. It's a super complex thing to look at the first time, but what it means, and this is what I talked about, you have full control over the online experience of the end user. You don't have the magical things that were in AppCache. AppCache is a problem because it's magic. It's this thing and it does something, and when it doesn't do it, we're like, don't know what's going on here. With ServiceWorker, you've got callbacks, you've got promises, you've got every single control mechanism we have as programmers to do something useful with the network stack. It's a great video out there by Jake Archibald, 14 minutes long, from Google I/O, called ServiceWorker, the network layer that's yours to own. And it's super funny. He's a very, very funny English guy. And it's also well researched. You cannot only detect if some user is offline, but you can also know when a connectivity goes down, because that's the biggest problem. A lot of our offline and online logic is all about like, oh, the user's offline, I showed him that. The user is online, I showed him that. Even having a wireless connection doesn't mean that you're connected. You might have to go through some login system like in this room here. So ServiceWorker has ways to test for all these different things and put promises in to find out what's happening with the network stack. It's like having a programmable cache or a programmable router directly in JavaScript in front of your website. And this is amazing because I don't hope that something gets cached, but I can name my cache and I can do an inventory of it. And I know how many files have been there, I know how much data I used, and so on and so forth. So ServiceWorker is one of the most important things to look at in the next few months, because an app that doesn't work offline is not an app. I'm offline all the time. Don't pretend that your users will be online all the time or be happy about it. You live in San Francisco, you know as soon as it's cloudy, the GPS connection doesn't really work. Or there is no wireless that's free, except for the hacked ones. There's at Web Directions in Australia, there was Axel FEYERKE, German guy as well, gave another talk about offline first, and he talked about the more interesting parts in the UX model of that, because we don't even have the right interaction models for offline and online connectivity. How do you tell a user they're online? I mean, Foursquare is my favorite, like, an exciting new error has occurred. And you're like, okay, if that error comes 15 times a day because I'm offline, it's not exciting anymore. It just means I'm offline. So finding ways to get people to understand that we're trying to do something for them, to give them data for later when they go offline, is a big UX problem. And for designers, I think it's a super interesting model of getting things out there. So please look at the interaction models that are out there. We're starting with it. We put the plumbing in with ServiceWorker, but we don't even know how to show the end user when they're online, when they're offline, when their connection is slow. The operating system on devices does it for them, but on the desktop, not so much. So make ServiceWorker epic, help us with that. File bugs, look at the documentation. It's implemented now in the latest Chrome. It's implemented partly in Firefox. Internet Explorer shows interest. But that's why we talked about the app cache thing as well, because Microsoft wouldn't do anything without knowing numbers. And that's totally fine, because their business clients are businesses, are people that don't want functionality in the browser that they don't use. So if we don't use things, things are not going to get into browsers. We can complain to Microsoft, we can complain to Apple, but if the numbers of the use case of new technology is so low, why should I put engineering effort into there and put the new things in there if we don't even show interest in them? Now, the other big thing, of course, is web components. That's been around now for a year or so, and it was big at Google I/O. It was big at every other conference. There's probably 5 talks here about web components as well. And web components are awesome. I always hated that on the web I didn't have a widget factory. I didn't have a way to build interactive widgets except for with JavaScript to render against the browser. With web components, we render with the browser, which means it could be much faster, much less battery consuming, much nicer in interaction models, much richer, because the keyboard interactivity of the operating system, for example, would be given to you rather than you having to simulate it. In the past, we always had to use JavaScript to create things. We can create everything with JavaScript. That's always the way out. Like, oh yeah, browser doesn't do that. I write everything in JavaScript. Good, but the performance is painful, and its performance is up to you as well. So with web components, we've got this opportunity to build real interfaces, real application interfaces that render well and can be reusable as well. That's the biggest part about it. But I think we're overshooting the mark already. You have these custom elements.io and component.kitchen, and people are building lots and lots of components already. They're like, oh, like my slider, or like photo gallery. Like out of a sudden, we put all the things we put into jQuery and didn't perform there inside a custom element and hope it performs. And we didn't change our code at all. We didn't do anything useful with it. We just hide complexity into our own function. And one of the first ones on Component Kitchen I saw was an X, or no, what was called my portfolio, my-portfolio as a web component. How is a portfolio a component? Components are little modular things that you can put together and mix and match and do things with them. Making a whole website as one component doesn't make any sense. The whole component thing to me started when I worked at Yahoo and we moved from YUI2 to YUI3 because large corporation, every department worked for themselves and they didn't want to talk to each other. They just wanted to build one little part of the front page. And they didn't want the CSS of the others bleed into it. They didn't want to have the functionality be slower than the others. So we had to do like all kind of front loading and iframes and nested iframes and really dirty things. And now we have that with web components. It's little components that do one thing and one thing well that you can mix and match. Google does a great job with, for example, in Polymer with the services components. Like you can say like Google-map and give it a lat long and it will render a map for you. That's great. The only problem I found with it is that people don't think about the error case. What if the GPS lookup didn't work? Then your component should have an error message as well in it and not just be like magically not showing. That's not good enough. At least show something to the user that makes sense. And that's not the lat and long because people can't read that. Normal people. I worked in maps, so I had to. So web components are not there to actually hide complexity. And we do it right now already, which is like, oh, now everything works because it's one element. It's not 50,000 JavaScript files and CSS files anymore. It's one element. That's just hiding things. That's like reinventing .NET or ASP, just with cool new technologies. We shouldn't be thinking about that. We should be thinking about modules and reusing them. So web components in themselves are actually a component, if you think about it, because they're not in the browser yet. Chrome is very much ahead of us. Firefox is in there. Others don't do it yet. But there are actually 4 different standards that are going into web components that are in different ways of support already in browsers. And you should think about all of them. The first one is Shadow DOM, which always sounds like a name of a goth chat room or something like. That one is the elements that are in the browser that you don't see. Video element you put in there, and the video element has a scrubber, a volume bar, all kind of buttons. These are not magical pixie things. These are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You just don't see them in the source code unless you go through the developer tools and you turn on Shadow DOM and you see them. So that would allow you to put your complex HTML inside the browser and let the browser render it for you. That's what Shadow DOM is about. Not implemented fully in any browser yet because it's really, really hard to do. But this is the thing that makes web components really perform if we get this sorted out. HTML templates allows you to do templating, much you do like with like Handlebar, Mustache, 60,000 other JavaScript frameworks that do templating, but in the browser directly. These are chunks of HTML that are not rendered, that are not actually slowing down the browser, that are just there until you use them, which is really cool as well. It's something I used to do in PHP or in Perl before that, and then in ASP C# and didn't want to work anymore and live anymore. Custom elements allow you to create new elements, like your own elements that say like my navigation, my TV set. But the really cool thing about custom elements is that you can also inherit from others. So please, please don't come up with your own button. Inherit from the HTML button, do only the changes that you need to do. Because the whole accessibility of a button is already baked in. This works for you, the keyboard accessibility, the discoverability by screen readers, the indexability, all these things are there for you. Your own button that is just a div with a click handler does not do any of that stuff. But with web components, or in this case custom elements, you can do that. And the last one is HTML imports, which once you have your custom element done, you just import it into the document and it's used when needed. The big problem with HTML imports is right now that they're synchronous. So the more custom elements you do, the slower the first load will be. So we have to find ways around that, but it's really tricky. Maybe some worker thing worked out there. With service workers, we could do that, I think. How far down the line are we with this? Are we componentized yet? That shows you like how much is implemented where and what you can do with it, and you can click through it and read the documentation and everything. So that's pretty sweet as well. Now, let's get to the last bit of what I want to talk about, and that's dangerous messaging and oversharing. And this is something that drives me crazy. We are so good in telling people what's broken about the web because we love to talk to each other about what's broken. This was Telerik the other day saying web components aren't ready for production yet. Very well researched article, nice, lots of information in there. If you know your stuff, it's really insightful. The tech press will go on that and make the headline, web components are another fever dream of Google that will never work. They love to see us fail. I love it like that the tech press loves to see talk about bad things about HTML5 and the web, and their whole business model is the web that people click on ads. So you're shooting your platform in the foot here. That actually is no, fair enough. But this is a dangerous, dangerous thing. We keep telling people this technology is not ready. Here's the 15 things that don't work. Yes, true. Let's fix those things. Let's concentrate on fixing those things behind the scenes with pull requests, with bug filed, with trying things out and sending your test results back to browser makers. We all want to hear this stuff. We know what's broken. We just want to know how to fix it, and we need real data and real users to fix it for you. So when I tweeted about this, this was hilarious because web components aren't ready for production yet, and the first thing by Alex Russell from Google was like so much FUD, and then it sparked a slight discussion. And a bit more discussion. And a bit more discussion. And this is like the who is who of people in web components that was going on there. I picked exactly randomly the right time where everybody went apeshit on that. And it was just wonderful because this is good, but it's in public. So the evil tech press can go there now. Oh, the Microsoft guy said that is broken. The Google guy said that is broken. If we went to job interviews like we describe our technology to people, we would never get a job. You know, we would be the first thing would be overexcited, like, I'm the best thing your company will ever have. Everybody else just makes you disappointed. But I steal toilet rolls. And from time to time, I don't wash myself. And like, you know, we're so excited about telling each other what's broken rather than celebrate what's working and make good things with it and make real products out of it. So let's enable creation. And we talked about, they introduced this earlier, it's super rewarding to teach. And I promise all of you, you start teaching and you end up learning. I used JavaScript professionally for 5 years before I wrote my first JavaScript book. Oh my God, I realized I've known nothing about the language, although I used it. And that's even worse nowadays. The other day I defined the Stack Overflow developer, full Stack Overflow developer, because so many people are just copying and pasting results from Stack Overflow without ever knowing what they're doing. But at the same time tell you that their stuff scales better than yours. It's quite fun. So one of the things we have in Mozilla is WebMaker. And this is very basic. We have things like X-ray goggles, which is just telling people that HTML is not fixed, but you can actually play with it. Popcorn Maker to remix videos on the web. Thimble to actually is a code editor and a result next to each other. And it has error messages that are real human readable. And a lot of times we just build little projects for them to get people started with HTML. And we make mistakes in those. And the description, like in comments, is how to fix the thing. And the more you fix the code, the better the display on the other side gets. This is all our lives. We don't code, we debug. That's what we do 80% of our time. So we might as well get people started with that as well, because it's much more rewarding than like, oh, I put hello world on the screen. Everyone's going to pay you billions for that. So I think with web components and reusable things in the browser and our platform that's such high fidelity, what you see is what you get is not a dirty word anymore. It's not what you so intensely wished you'd gotten, which it used to be. It's just something we can do. App Maker is basically a drag and drop app generator, and with a button you can package it up as a HTML5 application, send it to a Firefox or Android device. Why not? Why does everybody need to learn things? And why does everybody need to have a Mac and go to the command line to write CSS? They want to build apps. In a lot of cases, these apps can be just simple things that are boilerplates. As I said, Wix.com and other people make money with that. We might as well build really cool things out there. I want to see the old school portal kind of apps go away and use web components instead. And all of these here, like in AppMaker, all of the chat room and the MeetSpaces chat output or a button, the things down there, every single one of them is a web component that went back to the repository of components as well. None of this is inside only AppMaker. It just goes out and can be used in all the others. Because Google also released that designer for Polymer for the new paper design. And this stuff looks beautiful. If you haven't looked at it yet, it's gorgeous. It's like really wonderful. And this is just a drag and drop thing to put it together and get the code back. Why not start with that? In a meeting, to iterate this way was so much faster than iterating with code and showing each other how fast we are and how good we are in coding to each other. This is an editor for the Phaser HTML5 game editing suite. Why not? I loved games in the past that had editors directly in them. We should have more of those. It makes more sense than waiting for the next level or having to pay extra for the next level inside the app. I think it's time to step up for us and to realize that we've run away from our end users. We are in this echo chamber where we get each other excited about problems that don't really exist that much, whereas really end users out there have completely different questions and completely different problems. Be nosy. Look at how people use their phones. Look at people over people's shoulders how they use their computers. Find out what the problems are when people get stuck somewhere. People download apps because they don't find a website that does the right thing for them. And we have a chance to do that. We can iterate much, much faster than anybody else. The web can iterate so much faster than any other platform out there, but not if we make every single thing that we put on a website dependent on Ruby and Sass and 50,000 build scripts and knowing these kind of things. These are cool tools. These are great tools to use, but they should not be the starting point. Don't frustrate people that want to get into our world, because we have a lot of people to hire. And we have a lot of work to do. So people should get excited about it and not be like, okay, I'm not as intelligent as those guys. I'm never going to work there. This is frustrating. This is not a good idea. So be awesome. Do amazing things. Have your spaceships. Write them. Talk to each other about spaceships. But do it at spaceship conventions. Don't do it in public. Don't tell people that everything is broken just because we have so much insight. The other day somebody asked me, so Chris, if you didn't work for Mozilla, where would you work? And I have a problem with that because I have so much insight into other companies. None of them seems interesting any longer. And this sounds arrogant, but every one of us knows things about their company they don't like. And with each other, we talk to each other about this. So we're sharing the bad things again. Maybe going into a company that other people hate, I would be successful there and would love being there. So let's celebrate the good things that are going on with our environment. Let's celebrate that we are independent, that we could work from home, let's demand from our managers that we work from home from time to time, so we're allowed to have a social life. I found that an honest engineer, somebody who cares about the product that they build, working from home is the most effective person out there. You have to remind them to go to bed and stop working. You don't have to drag them into the office and caffeinate them and give them extra money to incite them to do more work. We love our work. We love coding. We don't love sitting in meetings with business managers that don't know what we're doing, but we still have to do this all the time. So let's think about not spending money on business facilities, but how to coach our people to be independent. And also think about 24/7 coverage by being in other countries from time to time. Lots of things to think about. So take in what you hear today. Look at all the other talks. There's great stuff coming up. But think about it, not the way oh my God, this is broken, oh my God, I can never be using that. But think about how can I use that today? What can I do? What can I take from this talk that I explain to other people in a simple language instead of telling them you need 15 libraries to make it work? And that's all I had, so thanks very much.